When you open up Plants vs. Zombies 2, it takes you to this loading screen that is the tip below the loading bar. One of those tips says, zombies of a world can be defeated by plants of that world. And I thought, oh really? Are you sure about that? So in this little series I'll be doing, I'm going to test the extent of that loading screen tip. Can I beat Plants vs. Zombies 2 only using plants of their respective worlds? Now, let's go over some rules I gotta follow. I can only use plants of the world that I'm in, like Repeater in Ancient Egypt and Hot Potato in Frostbite Caves. To do this, I'll play through the world like a regular playthrough until I get all of the plants, then go back to the beginning to start the challenge. No power-ups, no buying plant food, no level ups aside from the level 2 pea shooter in the tutorial. Wow, how game-changing. Just try not to use currency to beat the level. I will be using Zen Garden if it's necessary. Any conveyor belt levels or levels that pick your plants will be played if they give plants of the world they're in. Otherwise, they'll be skipped. And finally, pre-placed plants will stay where they are. Also, shout out to Koala pvz and Shagrot's Cave for inspiring this challenge. With all those rules set, let's start the first world. I already unlocked all the plants off screen, so let's get straight into it. Day 1 was going to be uneventful until I came up with another mini challenge for myself. Since Ancient Egypt might as well be 1 chili pepper of difficulty instead of 2, I wanted to see how far I could make it without using twin sunflower. With that restriction set, the most I could plant was 3 repeaters, which took care of those 3 lanes. I had to let the other 2 lanes go to the mowers, which then respawned, which surprised me because we're no longer in the tutorial, so why is the game still holding our hand? I was about to skip day 2 because it's a power-up tutorial, but I wanted to see if I could do it without the power-ups. Of course, it's not part of the challenge, as we don't even have Ancient Egypt plants, but I thought it'd be fun. And somehow, 2 peach shooters, 2 cabbage poults, and a walnut on every lane is enough to beat it, with the help of some pre-planted potato mines and way too much sun at the start. Funny how the one level where you have free power-ups is completely doable without them. The developers might as well have given us no plants at all so we could really try them out. Day 3 had a cabbage pult and 2 sunflowers pre-planted, which was useful for our no twin sunflower mini challenge. It was around here when I realized the raw zombie is unironically easier to deal with than a basic. He holds still while taking in sun, so you can take it as soon as he's about to, which is a lot easier than it sounds, and he just lost half of the progress any other zombie would have made. Isn't this guy supposed to be a special zombie who's more threatening? What a joke. Oh yeah, we also met the camel zombie, who Repeater takes care of almost as well as the game says Bloomerang can. Doesn't help that using iceberg lettuce on one freezes everything else connected to it. The only reason I even used plant food on this level was so I could finish it faster. Day 4 was a conveyor belt level that gave us all of the bloomerangs in the world because no one wanted them outside of this one, and a few walnuts which I planted and immediately shoveled to make room on the conveyor. Even after I got 4 columns of bloomerangs, it kept giving me more. Safe to say it was the easiest level so far. On day 5, the only plant I was able to use was Bloomerang. This would have been a bit tough if this weren't still a tutorial level, so the lawnmowers kept spawning, further decreasing my will to actually keep playing the game. Day 6 was the boss level, so there was a conveyor belt that gave us an even spread of bloomerangs, iceberg lettuce, cabbage poults, walnuts, and potato mines. I shoveled as many of the non-Ancient Egypt plants as there were in the conveyor to make as much room for bloomerangs as I could. The game threw a few bucket heads at us, so I made sure to freeze them every time, and plant food the bloomerang if necessary. I was going for 2 columns of bloomerangs on each lane, but as you can see in the footage, I strayed off of that plan for a bit to deal with this bucket head, and had a close call with this cone head by missing a plant food. But other than that, it was pretty smooth sailing from there. Even the Gargantuar was quite a pushover with how many iceberg lettuces the conveyor gave me. He didn't even get a chance to throw his imp. Day 7 started us off with a lot more sun than usual, so setting up a single column of attackers to solo the whole thing was much easier. I even got to test whether Bloomerang or Repeater was the better attacker at this moment right here. Bloomerang is better at taking out weak zombies behind a strong one, but Repeater is better for taking out the strong one. Too bad I didn't use the synergy at all because of the lack of a sun producer. Day 8 is the iceberg lettuce tutorial, where the pre-placed potato mines eventually take out these explorer zombies. I took this opportunity to farm as much sun as possible before planting anything. That's when we encountered our first big problem, the Tomb Raiser. This guy was specifically designed to counter plants like Repeater, so a column of bloomerangs it was, along with Grave Buster to get rid of anything that became too much. There was this one close call with a basic who I stalled a bit too long and almost took a lawnmower. And there goes 175 sun down the drain due to my greed. Okay, now I'll make sure to know the limitations of my plants and learn when to stall and when to— Are you freaking kidding me? Well, at least I know I'm not in this tutorial anymore. How the fuck? The most interesting thing that happened on day 9 was this buckethead that tanked 3 iceberg lettuces and a bloomerang plant food before I had to plant another one. Same story with day 10, not much to note other than this raw zombie who I probably didn't even stall all the way to its furthest, and the Tomb Raiders were absolute pushovers because I went bloomerangs instead of repeaters along with busting as many unoccupied graves as I could. I could only use Boomerang and Grave Buster on day 11, and it was uneventful until these 2 bucketheads steamrolled over the Boomerangs at the end because I had no firepower even with plant food and no way to stall. They had to go to the lawnmowers. Wow, day 12 looks like a Grave Buster's paradise. I opted for repeaters this time because Boomerang was feeling kinda stale. I somehow managed to stall a raw zombie for too long and it went to a lawnmower, but it was also because of the sarcophagus zombie. Good thing I went with the power of Repeater because one of them could have killed it with the help of a few iceberg lettuces which were on cooldown. However, the rows did get crowded a few times, so I had to use a few Repeater plant foods where I wouldn't have wanted to. Day 13 was the first mold colony level, and it was a stressful cakewalk besides this conehead breaking through a Repeater and taking a mower. The only other thing of note for this level was I used iceberg lettuce's plant food for the first time in this run. Twice. Oh looky, another Grave Buster's paradise. Day 14 itself wasn't all too interesting, but it was the first ever use case and failure of Bong Choi so far. Turns out level 1 Bong Choi is not very good at all. And there was the sarcophagus which Boomerang needed a bit of assistance with from Repeater and iceberg lettuce to successfully deal with. And we ended the level with almost the same amount of graves that we started with. Damn you, Tomb Raiders. Hey, Zen Garden. I already had that unlocked. Thanks, game. Day 15 had us protect 3 endangered sunflowers, which proved useful in providing sun in the not-so-temporary absence of twin sunflower. We're over halfway through this desert and we haven't used a single twin sunflower. How crazy is that? Basically all I did was a column of repeaters and an extra one behind the sunflowers, eventually filling in the empty gaps when I could. I also learned that 2 repeaters can fully counter a sarcophagus zombie. Good to know. Day 16 would have been uneventful if I had used boomerangs instead of repeaters because Tomb Raiders kept spawning graves right in front of them and I didn't have enough sun or plant food to deal with the top and bottom rows, letting them take each lawnmower. How tragic. Same case for day 17. A single row of boomerangs and a few iceberg lettuces could have soloed this level until I had this weird interaction with a bucket head. Kinda pissed that I lost a lawnmower to some stupid bug, but it's whatever. Day 18 was the first last stand level. 2 rows of repeaters haven't failed me before and they didn't fail now, even against all these camels. There was one close call with the bucket head though, but good thing I had plant food. I didn't even notice the plant limit on day 19 and I probably missed one right now. My eyes were on the mold colonies in the back 2 columns. Tried to set up a row of repeaters, but this one explorer zombie had to breach my defenses when I didn't have the currency, so I was forced to use emergency reservations. Nothing too crazy. Day 20 had these 4 endangered sunflowers, providing us with all the sun we would need for the level. This made me realize we are never going to use twin sunflower for this entire challenge. Bro, now I'm a bit upset. Why couldn't we have unlocked her in a later world? Why'd it have to be the easiest one? Where we didn't even need her for all of it so far? Man, I really like twin sunflower. I wanted to use her later. I'm really gonna miss sun producers and she's the best one I got so far. Oh, you wanted to know how I did in the level? 2 columns of repeaters. That's all you need to know. Not even iceberg lettuce was used. Day 21 I thought was going to be the end of the twin sunflower one, with the game providing us with it, kernel pult, and melon pult to deal with this seemingly hard challenge. But nope, I got enough sun to where a single row of repeaters along with iceberg lettuces and plant food did it all on its own. Man, I'll miss twin sunflower, we hardly knew her. Day 22 I actually kinda struggled with. I initially went with a row of bloomerangs, but then a sarcophagus zombie mowed right through it, and so did a conehead somehow. Probably something to do with the mold colonies in the back row. Then I couldn't get enough sun to last me through the rest of the wave, and we got our first loss. So I can use Twin Sunflower. Nope! Full row of repeaters worked just fine, and I didn't need my best sound producer to afford it, baby. Whoa! Day 23 was completed by yet another full row of repeaters and proper placements of iceberg lettuce when necessary. Day 23 was completed by yet another full row of repeaters and proper placements of iceberg lettuce when necessary, along with some repeater plant food on a few bucket heads. Yeah, nothing too great. Oh hey, didn't see you there. Am I even able to deal with you? Huh, guess so. And day 24 was the last stand level where 2 rows of repeaters carried yet again, cementing the fact that Twin Sunflower is completely unneeded in ancient Egypt and will not appear again. It's okay though, I'll be fine without her, I think. And besides, I'll get other better sun producers later on. Finally, day 25, the Zomboss fight. Most challenge runs don't even try him because of the conveyor, but not this run. It favors this one specifically, so let's use the home base advantage against him. First things first, get the attackers wherever he spawns minions, preferably repeaters in the back due to their power. If possible, place anything where any grave bones from the rockets would be. They don't spawn on occupied spots. Get Bonk Choi right behind where the zombies spawn. He'll be able to contribute from a safe distance there. If Zomboss ever chooses to charge, plant food the furthest plant up front. He'll kill all of the zombies in the lane he's running in, even guards, and the invincible plant will stun him. Place and shovel any non-Egypt plants as soon as you can to make as much room for the conveyor as possible. Bonk Choi plant food is literally just a cherry bomb. It can deal with most zombies Zomboss spawns up front. Keep all this up, and the Zombot Sphinxinator will become an ancient relic of the past. And that was all of ancient Egypt with only ancient Egypt plants. This video was a pain to record, not because of its difficulty, but the footage literally wouldn't save to my gallery if I recorded for too long, and it kinda tanked my motivation to even do this. I think it was because I was recording with my mic on and my phone didn't like that when I did it for more than 5 minutes, but I don't know for sure. For now, I'm here, and I'll try to get a new video on this series out every week or two, but no promises on that. My life is pretty busy, and I already procrastinated on it a lot, not to mention it takes an hour to go through the world, and I gotta do that twice, along with scripting, recording, and editing taking a lot longer than I initially thought. The series is still happening, of course, but the upload schedule is subject to change. It should be a fun little filler until my next FNF ranking, but until then, I'll see y'all at Pirate Seas.